Because at the moment, I'm about 6 inches under, and I'm going to need to be out of the water before I set sail. So it's back to the drawing board. The ancient Polynesians used to travel hundreds of miles in canoes that kind of look like this, these dugout canoes. But when they wanted to go further afield, what they did was add like an outrigger. So it would look like this, and this added stability to the craft. But I haven't got the time or the tools to build this sort of elaborate canoe. But what I have got here is fantastic resources, masses of bamboo and masses of lashings. And what I can do is build like a catamaran, a twin-hulled version of this that's much less sophisticated, but it's got the stability, and I can use that to get me off this island. I've got to double the size of the first raft, then lash together a second hull and deck. This simple catamaran-like design will give the raft more stability and give me room for provisions. And I just can't wait to get this thing in the water. The deck has to be strong and flexible enough to withstand the powerful swells and waves and lift me above the water, keeping me as dry as possible. And because the new design will be so heavy, I've put rollers underneath to make it easier to get into the water. Now I need a sail. Without that, any trip will be at the mercy of the currents. This is the one part of this whole raft that is a complete unknown to me. Trying to make a sail, and this is something I've never done before. If I'm honest, I don't know whether this is just going to work or not. I'm going to interweave these palm leaves to make the sail, then build a timber frame to support it, bracing the whole structure. Maybe that across the bottom. A few of these, and then lash all of that together. It just might work, but I don't know whether it's going to stand up to the rigours of whatever the Pacific has out there. I decide to find out what the conditions are like further out to sea, and they are not good. There's no way I'm going to be able to get off this island until these trade winds ease a bit. I mean, just look at this. It's just this frothing cauldron of white water, and it's so intimidating to look at, and it's just as far as the eye can see. Any raft will struggle in seas like this. I'm going to have to wait for the winds to ease. Then I spot something in the water. A bottle. This could be a lifesaver. If I can somehow manage to get this bottle, it can make all the difference to me. But getting down there is not going to be easy. Waves like this can be lethal. Recently, a family was swept off a shelf like this by a huge wave whilst watching the surf. The couple drowned, but the water pushed their 11-year-old son onto the rocks, where he was rescued by lifeguards. Waves usually have a regular pattern to them. They come in sets of 7 and get bigger throughout the set. So if I'm patient enough and watch the patterns, I can avoid the biggest waves. The bottle has floated into some calmer waters. I'm going to take my chance. This bottle can store precious water, but now it's time to head back to the shelter side of the island to put the finishing touches to my raft. In the open seas, I'll need to be able to control the raft. So I make a simple oar out of hibiscus. I'm threading it together with a fibre for strength. This will also act as my rudder. It's hard, slow work, but it's worth getting right. I just don't want to be at the mercy of the currents. My sail is also beginning to take shape now. Weaving is one of these things you just can't hurry. And it's so nice just to actually have the time to sit quietly. The sun's gone down, the fire's going, and I can slowly weave this all together. But it's definitely beginning to feel now that this could work as a sail. And it's almost as if every weave that I'm doing is another step closer to home. Once I leave, I can meet every stranded sailor's worst fear: sharks. Oh, that one just knocked under the raft. Next morning, it's raining, but that's good news for me. Ah, perfect way to have a fresh shower with all this salt water I'm under. Ah, that's much nicer than the salt. When it's raining like this, I really want to try and make use of it and see if I can collect some water. And the best way of doing this, I've just found an old bit of coconut bark. And if I place that in the sand like this, with one of these big leaves, the rain will collect on here, funnel down this and into this, and this can be full when it's raining like this, just in a few minutes. That's going to be a nice cup of fresh water. In this heat, you should drink at least a pint of water every day. My bottle will only give me 5 days' supply. That's halfway. But it's in, and that's my sail, and it's also going to be my sunshade when I'm out on it. It looks awesome. I've got to make sure now I've got all the provisions I need, because I'll tell you what, once this baby launches, it's so heavy, there's no way I'd ever get it back on this beach. And I've got to have everything I need for whatever the Pacific has got to throw at me. As well as water, I'm taking more coconut oil for protection and sand to polish my knife. If I see any ships, I'll use it as a signal reflector. For me, this is so exciting, and I will never forget these days, but I just pray now with my whole heart and soul that this thing works. It's a moment of truth, and if you're not completely confident that your raft will survive, ditch it and swim back to the shore. But this Polynesian design seems to be stable. Well, I'm off, and the winds are much lower than they've been for the last few days. I've just been keeping an eye on them. And these trade winds have definitely died, and this is a weather window I've been waiting for. And I just hope this weather stays until I can get going a bit. Rough seas will severely weaken my raft, and I hope this calm spell will last. But at the moment, the first problem of being out here is the sun. It's so hot here, and this sail's giving me a little bit of shade. But my main problem at the moment is the amount of saltwater spray I'm just getting over me, and I can feel my skin getting really just dry from it. And this is what I bought this coconut oil for. And this is the time to be putting it on to stop getting all this rubbing from the salt water. The best way of keeping cool though in this heat is just every few hours dive in and have a dip. You always want to make sure you've got a leash on, because there are an awful lot of stories of lone survivors getting separated from their rafts. But there's something in the water, and I've got to get out quick. I should have double-checked before jumping in. I tell you, I'm lucky to be out of that water, and normally if the sharks are on the surface, you can see their dorsal fins. But these ones are deep, and I had no idea they're anywhere near when I got in. Whenever you're swimming